Hello there, my name's Brian Keane. I'm sought after as a franchise business mentor. I've been franchising for over 30 years, and during that time I've seen clients that I've had grow their businesses by a total of over $3 billion worth of value and see the number of outlets they have increase by nearly 7,000. I'm the author of Australia's only franchise training program. My background is that I started as a quantity surveyor in London. I emigrated to Africa, spent 10 years there and ran my own construction business and in other companies I started. I arrived in Australia in 1975, and after a short period in the building industry when it became very difficult to survive, we had a real slump in the early 1980s, I started franchising. I joined a group called Bedshed. I was about the 5th or 6th franchisee very early on. It was a fairly new concept in those days, and I had 7 stores in 5 years. So I was a bit of a serial franchisee, and I really enjoyed it and did well. I then started doing franchise broking, helping people buy and sell franchises, both working for franchisors and helping franchisees sell their franchises. Joined by a colleague, and we founded a business called the Franchise Alliance. We were then asked by the odd client to actually help them convert their business into a franchise. We ended up as a franchise, essentially partnership at the Franchise Alliance with 3 of us. We expanded the operation nationally, so we had 5 outlets around the country, each of those franchised. And in seeing the way lots of different franchise businesses operate, because we worked with many of the large national franchise groups, we were able to define the way to really do it, we thought, perfectly. So we established 6 of our own franchise groups, and over a 5-year period grew those to about 120 outlets. Worked with people like Jim's Mowing, seen Jim grow by multiple sizes in the last 20 odd years, now worth probably $100 million. Cash Converters started in Perth, now worth probably $450 million, something of that nature. Eagle Boys Pizza, worked with them, helping them set up in Western Australia, and their value recently was somewhere around the 35 million, I believe. We worked with a local, then small, car service group called Automasters, and they're probably worth around the 20 million I would expect today with their 35 or 37 outlets. And we found the Expense Reduction Analysts, a consulting business, probably worth around 150 million, and now operates in 27 countries. Franchising gave me the opportunity to grow my wealth and to indulge in my enjoyment of motor cars, vintage Alfa Romeos, and to support my wife Prue, who has her own business, as well as working as an absolutely key member of my team. And she spends a lot of time travelling internationally to garden and flower shows and so forth, because she runs her own websites and she's an author writing in that field. But it wasn't always like that. I started off, my parents were very humble, they were shop assistants. I was born in London during the Second World War, and my playground down the road was where bombs had fallen, on the bomb site. We played football in the street, and about the age of 7 or 8 I started, I suppose, fending for myself, creating my own pocket money by working on a milk round. By my mid-teens I was running a stall in the weekend markets, and that really got me started to breaking out of the routine that my family naturally accepted. The class limitations and so forth meant that they didn't aspire to be more than, basically clerical or retail staff people. And they saw the same for me. So I was breaking out of that routine, which hence saw me travel to Africa and then to Australia. But if you're in that situation where you're probably locked in, most people in business really just buried on the day-to-day. Franchising is a way to help you get out of it, because the statistics are quite scary. In Australia, the average number of hours worked by people in business is 49. Doesn't leave a lot of time for the golf course or the family. And of the 2 million businesses in Australia, statistics show us quite clearly 40% will not be operating in 5 years' time. Added to that, the fact that around 90% of those business owners are not going to have more than the basic equivalent to the Centrelink pension. They're going to be living on $30,000 a year. Not very much to get by on when you think about it. And why is this a problem? Well, the truth is it's going to deteriorate because Australia cannot afford to pay the increasing number of people who are going to be eligible for pensions. And currently in Australia, our community support systems through Centrelink, they basically cost this country twice the percentage of the OECD average and about twice what they have in the EU. unsustainable. So you've got to take care of these things yourself. So I guess what I'm saying is, if franchising can work for you, let's have a look and see how we can use it to open the door to your dreams, how you can get some really good committed people working for you, and how maybe you can create some time for yourself and the opportunity to build some wealth so you can retire in comfort. The system I've developed, basically, I guarantee you can franchise your business in 90 days. So that in 3 months, you'll be ready to put on your first pilot franchise. And you can do it in a way where you reduce the risks, you make it pretty straightforward, and you save yourself tens of thousands of dollars. Because the truth is, franchising is simple. Anyone can do it, and it works. An example of this, let me give you one, is Jack Cowan. Jack Cowan, very few people know of, or have heard of even, but he is one of the wealthiest private business owners in Australia. He came to Australia from Canada in his mid-20s, and he bought the rights for Western Australia for Kentucky Fried Chicken. He soon grew that group successfully and realised there was more scope. So he looked around the United States, and he approached Burger King. And he brought Burger King to Australia. He renamed it Hungry Jack's, so you know who I'm talking about. Today, BRW magazine, and a recent edition, put his wealth at $940 million. A year ago it was $680 million. Enormous wealth growth in 1 year through franchising. And he's used franchising not just with Kentucky Fried Chicken, not just with Hungry Jack's, but also as a major investor in Boost Juice. He's systemised the Sydney Bridge climb, quite an experiencing system. So he's using the franchise concept in everything he does. And there are other organisations he's behind as well. A private individual has done it very well just using the concept of franchising. Is your business franchisable? Good question to ask. That's probably why you're watching this video. What I'd like you to do is just to write down and go to my website if you're not there already. There's a 4-minute test on the homepage that's called Is Your Business Franchisable? Just complete that questionnaire and I'll reflect on it and send you a report with a lot more information to get you started and to help you decide if franchising is for you or not. So let's look at some of the pros and cons of franchising. There are some great advantages, and I'll share 7 of these with you right now. The first is you attract working capital, because what you're doing every time you recruit a franchisee, sell a franchise, you're getting the initial franchise fee. That in its main is a return for you for your investment and the risk you've taken. And most of that will be money that will go to your bottom line. So it can be distributed, it can be invested in the business to increase plant, equipment, stock. It can be used to pay off your mortgage. It can be put into your super fund. If you go and grow your business as a conventional business, you're going to find capital. So it's exactly the opposite. As far as that's concerned, it's a drain on your assets. Second point that's really important is most franchise groups you'll find, because they're systemised and they're organised, they've got branding, will attract good people. Not just franchisees that respect a system, but staff, people in your team, people who want to be seen and identified with a group that they admire. And then leverage, that gives you the opportunity to leverage yourself out of the business, so you're spending your time working on the business. So working on the big picture is my 4th key large advantage a franchisor has. And if you're doing that, then that's giving the opportunity, a bigger picture, a growing organisation. We're on to number 5, which is group buying power. You're able to leverage with your suppliers the prices you pay for the products and the services you get. You'd be amazed how much you can get significant discounts and other arrangements from them, getting them supporting you and even getting them paying for your marketing for you. And then number 6, through this whole process, you're building your brand. Building your brand means you're building the value of your business, so you're creating your asset. This is the key objective of what you're endeavouring to do by growing a franchise, is increasing your wealth. And by growing the brand and growing it as a franchise group, you've now got a significant number of exit strategies. So the 7th benefit is you've got a range of exit strategies. Conventionally with your business today, you probably can sell it to a conventional business investor, business buyer. Franchising is going through a transition. We're following the pattern that's been happening for the last decade in the US, where there's a lot of consolidation. So there's a very good chance your business may be of interest to another franchise group who wants to consolidate, to grow their market by acquiring your brand, whether they're in the same field or a complementary field. It's happening regularly now. So that's one area. Then you've got investment bankers are interested in franchising because the margins are good, the systems are there, very easy to operate. Also, some of the super funds are having a look around. I know of people are talking to super funds about selling their franchise groups into them. And then franchisees. Not unusual to see franchisees band together and buy out a franchise group. It happens from time to time. And also, the last factor is a management buyout, where people who are in your management team decide to buy you out. It's something you may sponsor, or they may decide to approach you. And of course, the last one I haven't mentioned is going to an IPO, or floating your business as a public company, where you get the shares on the stock market. So when you've got all those range of options, and you've got demand, can you appreciate, just like selling a house, it's supply and demand. The more people you've got there, the higher the value. So you'll see the opportunity of some significant value, increase in the value of your business. Of course, it's not just all advantages. Some people perceive there are a number of disadvantages, and some of that involves a bit of work and commitment. The first is, if you're a franchisor, what you're going to do is lose some of your autonomy. You can't chop and change as you wish. You've got to follow a pattern because you've got commitments. The second point is a disadvantage, you're going to be scrutinised. Your franchisees are going to be looking at you and saying, you know, how are you doing things? Are you a good example? Are you someone to lead the group? Are you doing what you're committed to doing under the terms of your franchise agreement and under the understanding, the general understanding between a business partnership, a business relationship such as you're in? You also have to systemise and document your business, and this a lot of people see as the biggest hurdle. Frankly, it isn't, but that's the perception that people have. I can show you how you can systemise your business and document it very, very easily. It's a matter of keeping it simple. It's not necessarily easy, but step by step it can be done. But people perceive this as being daunting, and I meet many people who never get around to franchising because of that one aspect. And the fourth one, of course, is in going through those other three key areas, what you've got to do is spend some time. You've got to spend some time putting your manuals together, getting your documentation sorted and so on, and getting your training systems in place. But it's not a large investment when you compare what your return can be. There's some key responsibilities you need to understand as a franchisor that I believe most passionately you need to adopt. One is you need to look after the overall group marketing. Do as much of it as you possibly can. Do not leave it to your franchisees. Sure, they can do some local area marketing, but you must be the dependable, you must be the one that maintains the integrity of the brand. And then you need to undertake research and development, looking at the future. New systems, new processes, new products, new directions, innovations and so on. Training is an important area, the third big responsibility you have. You must train properly, but training doesn't stop at the end of your training session. No question about it, it's ongoing, which is why the fifth element of your responsibility is, without any question, support. You have to build and grow and maintain a great relationship with your franchisees so you can anticipate in advance when they need help and assistance. Because the more successful they are, what do you know? The more successful you are. And the system that I use and developed with my partners many years ago and still stick by right to this moment is the 4 Ds. The first one is you're going to develop the business concept. Then you're going to define it, so you're starting to get an understanding of the framework. Then you design it, which means documenting, going through that process, and then you're ready to get out there and deploy. You're in the 4th D, deploy the business. And I'll run through those in a little bit of detail. But if you follow this process when you set your business up, you'll be surprised just how straightforward it is. It takes away those intimidations, makes it a far less scary exercise, and you've got a very high success rate that you can anticipate if you do it properly. Because the fact is, franchising is simple. Anyone can do it, and it works. So let's run through those 4 Ds. The first one, develop. In the development aspect, you've got to learn about franchising. You've got to assess the project you've got. What's the program you undertake? What's the task involved? You look at marketing, look at organisation. I'll just touch on marketing a little bit now. We haven't got time to go into too much, but marketing is an area a lot of people get seriously wrong. They just don't understand the importance of it. It's critically important. Marketing drives the success of your business. And in a franchise group, it's essential to make sure everybody knows what their responsibility is for marketing. What are your franchisees' roles? When you look at marketing, you've got to develop a marketing plan that's coherent. That means starting off with a strategy. A strategy at the moment for your product, for your customer as they are today. And around that strategy, you then build your brand. So it's the identification of the business. And then, of course, you create an advertising plan to get out and schedule the promotion of your business to attract customers and so on. In a franchise, it's pretty much a sort of parallel situation. You've got your market strategy, you've got to create one for recruiting franchisees as opposed to recruiting customers. You've got to use the same branding that you've got, the same essential package as far as your business is concerned, and then the next step is you've got to put a promotion plan together. That's a promotion for advertising, recruiting franchisees. Through this whole process, marketing is so important because you're going to have an instantly recognisable brand and you must maintain the integrity. An example of a client I worked with was Shannon Daniels. Shannon lives in Perth. He's got a business called Triumph Property Services. He came to me to go through the process. He wasn't even sure if he wanted a franchise, but he knew he wanted to systemise and improve his business. And you know, within 6 months, he told me quite clearly that he grew that business by 48%, and he increased its value by $1.5 million just by going through his business marketing strategy, putting his organisation systems in place, and managing to leverage himself out of the business and employ a general manager. We've looked at develop. Let's have a look at define. This is the area where you have to understand you've got to build two business structures. One's for your franchisee, one's your franchisor. So you've got two clearly identifiable businesses. And to address that properly, you need the right corporate structure, so the right company in place, not just to give yourself protection from the point of view of assets and so forth, but to make sure you've got the right tax strategies in place, to make sure that you've got the right cash flows and budgets, that everyone's going to be profitable. Because your franchisees have to be profitable. If your franchisees are profitable, you're going to be profitable. So the two are interdependent. So when we look at budgets, the key element that feeds into budgets is territories, because the number of territories you can operate and having them operating efficiently is critically important to the future of the business. The person I rely on strongly, mentors me, is a colleague I work with called Peter Buckingham. Peter Buckingham has a company called Spectrum Analysis. He's been working in this field of territories, demographics for many, many years, worked internationally and works with many of the major companies, both franchise groups and standalone organisations like the large supermarket chains. And Peter has put together some great strategies. And the point he makes is you've got to get your strategy right as far as territories are concerned, because one mistake in your territories can be extrapolated from one mistake in one territory to maybe 20 or 50 or 100. And if you're missing an opportunity to create optimum income, or maybe it's the reverse, and you're actually creating franchisees who are not successful, can you see once you start to expand you end up with a problem? So the strategy about the way you do it is critically important. And doing it locally rather than moving interstate rapidly is a process that Peter advocates, and I support him wholeheartedly. One case study in that which I think is marvellous, it's what I call the Olympic Rings. Going back quite a number of years ago, Fred DeLuca established a group we know now as Subway. Originally it was Pete's Subs. He was a student, and it's interesting, many people in franchising started out as students or shortly after they'd qualified or finished their education in order to pay their way through. And this was Fred's situation. He raised $1,000, 50-50 himself and a family friend, and he opened a sandwich store. After 12 months they had $70 left. And they got together and said, what should we do? And in Fred's words, he was 17, knew no better, so they opened another one. And he ended up with a third one. It was then that they changed it to Pete's Subs, and it was then they started making a profit. But what they'd done, perhaps unwittingly in the process, was that each of those stores, the area of influence slightly overlapped. So they ended up with effectively a brand awareness already ahead of them when they opened an outlet, and very easy to service and support. It's a key element to remember. There's a lot of other factors you've got to take into account in creating the right territory structures. When we look at demographics, we're looking at income levels, we're looking at home ownership, we're looking at are these people in families or are they singles? You want to define, just as you do for your business today, who is your customer, your avatar. And when it comes to looking for franchisees, who are they? Who are your ideal franchisees? They're going to be very different to your customers, so you have to remember this. One of the key aspects, of course, is population, the size of your territory. So don't make that mistake many people make of just dividing it into groups of 10 or 20 or 50,000 people or relying on postcodes. You need to put some science behind it. An excellent example of strategic territory planning to grow a business significantly is John O'Brien from Poolworks. Poolworks essentially maintain people's swimming pools, provide chemicals, repair and replace pumps, that sort of thing. He approached the company. They were in Hornsby in northern Sydney in 1996, and they operated from a factory warehouse outlet on an industrial area, and they had 3 franchise vans. What John did, his strategy was to relocate and not have a factory outlet, but actually have retail outlets. And he essentially put up to as many as 7 franchisees under each outlet. So those retail outlets had 7 vans. The vans were accountable to the franchisee in the retail outlet, and the retail outlet carried their stock. So he was able to use that model to extrapolate it and grow to the point where he covers pretty much the whole of Australia these days. He's got 65 of his retail outlets and around 360 franchises. And he's used the whole franchise structure step by step as he's worked through it to create, I suppose, the territories as a way of growing the business, of giving everybody value. You follow the model, franchising is simple. Anyone can do it, and it works. We've looked at develop, we've looked at the second module of define, we're looking at design. When we look at the design aspect, we're talking about your operations and procedures manual, reflecting how the business works. Importantly, we're looking at franchise legals. You're also looking at establishing a franchisor business, getting your franchisor model ready so it's ready for franchisees when you get out there. Then, of course, you're going to be establishing your franchisees. The legal documents I mentioned briefly, these are critically important. Don't rush off to see a lawyer and get your legals done before you've got your whole system virtually ready to go, because you'll change it. And changing it gets expensive. And also finding the right lawyers is important. Many lawyers can franchise your business, just as many lawyers can handle a civil court case, for example. But you want someone that really understands franchising, and I work closely with a colleague, Ivan Paul. Ivan Paul Lawyers, he's been practicing in franchising for decades, has worked with over 250 franchise groups in that time, and him and his small partnership with 3 lawyers currently work for about 50 franchise groups. And he understands the whole concept. He's very down to earth, he calls a spade, and he contributes enormously to getting a really successful franchise agreement together. So it's important you select someone that is really franchise savvy, that really understands what they're doing. Clients tell me again and again that they've doubled what they knew about franchising working with Ivan, and in fact often they doubled what they didn't know. So having the right person in all these fields is critically important. So we've looked at develop, we've looked at the model of define, we've looked at design, we're now around to the 4th of the Ds, which is deploy. In this area, you're looking at recruiting your franchisees, and then you're stepping into leading a group in the future. A mentor of mine, and someone I rely on heavily for my content, is Greg Nathan of Franchise Relationships. Greg has a tremendous background of experience in the franchise industry. He was a franchisee, he had senior roles in a large franchise group before he went and studied back to university and studied psychology. And he developed a profile which is critically important for any franchisor to understand, and it's a mindset journey that people undertake when they go into franchising. And put very simply, they start off up here saying, wow, isn't it fantastic, the franchisor is wonderful, they walk on water. After a period of time, you know, the shine comes off a little bit, and before you know it, they're down here saying, I'm doing all the work, why am I paying all these fees? That's a point where you need to be very, very active. You need to know they're at that stage. You need to embrace it before they get there, and then you need to help them come back up so that they're then in a we situation where they're working with you and realise that you have a place, they have a place, that together you create a successful team for the future. It's the same as any relationship, actually. We all go through that same curve. So that's something important that you need to know. But when it comes to getting out there and growing your franchise, it's critically important that you're seen to be there when each outlet, whether it's a consulting business or retail or a mobile business, you want to have a really great launch. You want a band, you want the local member of parliament or a mayor, you want a dignitary coming, you want to cut the ribbon. You want to get the press there. You want to make sure that you're going to get some copy in the local newspapers, maybe even on the television. Get some awareness amongst the local public. This is going to give your franchisee all the excitement and awareness and the motivation to get out there. He's going to be locally recognised and known. And that's building your brand, because the more you do for him, the more it's going to do for you. So we've said these 4 Ds. Without any doubt, using those 4 Ds of develop, define, design and deploy has helped me create a great lifestyle. I've been very fortunate, got a wonderful family, opportunity to be able to help my wife building her business. She helps me a lot with mine. We really are active business partners in what we do. But I think franchising has got an opportunity to help Australia really grow, and I think regain its position as the lucky country. Franchising is a way of increasing not just franchisees' wealth, but also of creating employment, opportunities for people to grow up through the ladder. In the way I mentioned with John O'Brien with Paulworks, many of his franchisees have gone up just as they have with McDonald's. You hear cases all the time. They work behind the counter, they became a manager, became a store owner, before you know it, they're the CEO. And it's exactly the same in franchising. It can stimulate the whole economy generally, way beyond franchising. So these are the opportunities it's got. It gave me the opportunity as well to get good income and to establish a charity. I love franchising because I like to see people really become financially independent and improve their position. In the same way, I set up a charity called Microloan Foundation, where we provide microloans to women in Malawi in Southern Africa, where I spent 10 years. And I'll just share with you, essentially they get a $50 loan. And with that $50, they set up a business. And after 4 months, they repay that money, and they're then in a situation where they're creating income. They become capitalists, and they're able to feed their children better, to be able to pay for their school books, a bit of medical care. And over the process of the 4 years or so we've had our office open over there, we've actually given almost 10,000 loans to make a real big difference. And that's one of the key things that franchising's done for me, is helped me to do that. So I was able to break out from the cell that I was in, the prison if you like, where I come from, my humble background, in the same way as you in your business today are perhaps also in a prison cell. The opportunity to break out so that you're not one of the 40% of the 2 million business owners in Australia that are not on the map in 5 years' time. This is where I think franchising can be so helpful, but it's not for everybody. If you're not really determined to get out there, you're not committed, you're not someone who'll get on and do it, make it happen. If you're not someone who's got the right sort of approach, the right sort of mindset, and can become and can develop yourself into a leader, someone who's entrepreneurial. Now, I don't mean the general term entrepreneurial. Anyone who's in a business, started a business, has been entrepreneurial. They've taken the first step. I mean someone who's at that leading edge all the time, who's prepared to go outside the square, be prepared to take a risk, do something differently, don't mind standing out from the crowd, because that's the sort of person that can really succeed in franchising. And you can do it by simplifying the business you've got, simplifying the whole process. What puts off a lot of people, what discourages many, is the cost of franchising. It's become an expensive exercise if you choose to do it in the broadest possible way. But my comment, I suppose, there is you don't have to spend $50,000 to $200,000, which many people do. There are ways you can do it. You may not know whether franchising suits you or not. The truth is, I don't know either, which is why my strong recommendation is for you to come along to one of my 2-day workshops. My workshops basically are very anecdotal. My lawyer comes and he does a presentation, my corporate accountant comes and does a presentation. We get into the nitty-gritty. You actually start preparing aspects of your business that apply tomorrow, whether you franchise or not. And I'm sharing a lot of the crucial mechanics of franchising, the things I've learned over the years, having had 20-odd businesses, been a franchisee and a franchisor, and worked with many franchise groups, seeing what they've done, and help you avoid some of the mistakes I made, because I've had some big successes, but believe me, along the way, inevitably, you don't always get it right. Also, you'll discover whether your business is suited to franchising at this workshop, and maybe whether franchising or licensing is better for you. These are things you need to know. And in that workshop, we'll work through those 4 Ds, and in the process of going through those, it's going to help you really cement these key elements. So you'll learn as well about the programs that I have, Very simple, very effective, an easy way to get into franchising, a way to leverage yourself out of your business, create some wealth, and also get some assets behind you and give you exit strategies. These are the processes that I've seen companies I worked with going back many years, like Donut King. We've now got a value probably of $40 million. Brumby's, they changed hands for about 35. BB's Coffee, 15. They've all been amalgamated into Retail Food Group, which has become a large consolidated franchise group with a value of nearly $700 million. I worked with Ultratune, helping them establish their outlets. I would see their value today as probably around 20 million. And I worked with Domino's way back when they were 3 owners back, removed from where they are today, and they're now worth about 1.8 billion, expanded enormously. So having seen that growth of value in the companies that I've worked with over the years, something like $3 billion increase in their worth, and opening another 7,000 outlets, can perhaps show you that there is the opportunity out there. That if you follow it properly, franchising is simple. Anyone can do it, and it works. A case study would be Annette Corrie. Annette I work with, she has a business called About Venues, which helps people set up weddings, the whole ceremonies and so forth. In fact, she's got 2 businesses in that area. The other one's called Circle of Love. After 12 months in her business, and she started basically from being retrenched as a fashion designer, she started a business helping people set up their weddings and so on. She was told the business was worth $30,000. She wanted to sell. She was working 7 days a week. So she franchised. And she recently sold her 2 businesses for a significant 6-figure sum. She built them up to about 15 franchises. Done that with her own determination and initiative. And she had no background in franchising. So it shows you what can be achieved. So at my 2-day information pack workshop, you're going to learn a lot. Normally these would be $1,497, but I currently, for the remainder of 2014, I'm making them available for $397. But they're only small events, a handful of people, so they do fill up. So please follow up very quickly. The events are fully catered for, from 9 o'clock on the first day morning, and we finish at 4:30 on the second day. We have a dinner together on the second day evening. So you can be sure you'll enjoy yourself, get to know other people. But they're risk-free. If you come to one of my workshops and you believe you haven't received excellent value, then I'll give you a total refund. Simple as that. So let's just recap. If you're someone with a business or a concept and you think you can be really successful and you want to grow, now's the time, I believe, to take action. For you to actually come to a workshop, find out what franchising is all about, and decide whether it is indeed the way for you to go. If you're not on my website already, it's howtofranchisesimply.com.au. You can register there for my workshops. You'll see a number of months are always on the calendar. And of course, don't forget to fill in, is your business franchisable questionnaire. Thank you.